Good morning, everybody. You've heard of King Arthur. Well, his story has been told many ways and many times, and one way was the musical Camelot, which premiered on this date, December 3 in 1960 on Broadway. And for many, it became a symbol of the Kennedy years in the White House. In 1952, Dwight Eisenhower was elected president, and he won really big. And people liked Ike for all kinds of reasons. One was he had been the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe during the war, oversaw the Normandy invasion, had a great personality, got along with people. So people liked Ike. 1953, the Korean War ended. It was an armistice, technically. Didn't really change the map from where it had been in 1950 when North Korea had invaded South Korea. Also that year, Joseph Stalin died. So what's going to happen in the Soviet Union? What's going to happen to the client states that are under the Soviets' control in Europe? These were all unknowns. In 1954, the French were defeated in Vietnam, and a conference took place in Geneva to try to figure out what will happen next in Vietnam, and this is linked to our entrance in Vietnam some years later. In 1955, Russia set up the Warsaw Pact, an armed alliance to counter our armed alliance of NATO. So a lot of troops in Europe. In 1956, Egypt nationalized the Suez Canal. Britain, France, and Israel responded. This was very tense. People were afraid it might lead to another war, World War III even. Fortunately, that didn't happen. But a lot of tension remained. In 1956, the Hungarians revolted against the Soviet domination, and that didn't work. For a minute, it looked like it might, but it didn't. 1957, the Russians put Sputnik in outer space. They beat us in the space race. So that made us very nervous that there was this satellite up there. 1957, the Supreme Court ruled in Brown versus the Board of Education that you had to have more equality in the schools, and that's about the same time that Rosa Parks refused to move on a bus down in Montgomery, Alabama. So lots of tension in what we call civil rights struggle in the mid to late 50s. In 1959, two states joined the Union, Alaska and Hawaii. So the flag now has 50 stars, not the 48 that many of us remember. So when Ike left, one of his final speeches, he warned the American people about the military-industrial complex, the kind of symbiotic relationship that industry and the military have. And that was interesting coming from a former five-star general. So in 1960 was the election. Kennedy defeated Nixon, but barely. If you look at that popular vote, JFK won by 0.1%. So that was a real cliffhanger. We didn't really know until the next day who won. And a month later, Camelot debuted on Broadway. And here's Richard Burton as Arthur, Julie Andrews as Guinevere. Strikes us today as kind of like a high school play, but it was considered very cool and glamorous. And then the next month, in January, JFK was inaugurated, and he cut a figure of youth and energy and had the great speech about challenging us to do the right thing. And when he and Jackie hit the social circuit, they were handsome and glamorous, and people thought, oh, maybe we have an Arthur and Guinevere in the White House. And part of the appeal, at least at the time, was all the bright people that JFK had in his cabinet and advisors. And I commend this book to you by David Halberstam about those people, the best and the brightest. And that's sort of a tongue-in-cheek title. But it came crashing down in Dallas, didn't it? 1963, here Jackie and JFK getting off the plane at Love Field in Dallas on their way into the city. And it was Jackie who coined the term Camelot for the Kennedy White House. So that was her own word for that time period. And as we look at it today, here's JFK's grave at Arlington. His legacy is mixed because he didn't even serve a full term, but that was part of the 60s.